Ann Scrotto Adams has over 15 years of experience working in nonprofit management and higher education in the arts. She joined AAAE as executive director in 2018 after serving 6.5 years as the assistant director of programs and operations at the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design. She also worked as an admissions officer at the Rhode Island School of Design. Also, she's an alumna of RISD. She spent 2 years as the administrator in the Fine American Paintings Department at Christie's Auction House in New York City. Then, the Association of Arts Administration Educators, AAAE, is a membership organization representing the world's leading arts administration programs, trainings, and equipping students in arts leadership, management, entrepreneurship, cultural policy, and more. Their network of faculty and alumni are the cornerstones of local arts communities across the globe. AAAE serves as a convener, a resource, and an advocate for formal arts administration education. They envision a world in which arts administrators are effective, responsive, and provocative stewards of arts and culture who reflect the communities they serve, supporting their professional development grounded in scholarship and practice. So welcome, Leanne, and all that you do.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having
You're
me.
welcome. But I'm going to continue right on to Alan before we come back. Alan Brown is a leading researcher and management consultant in the nonprofit arts industry. As principal of WolfBrown, a management consulting agency, WolfBrown helps funders, nonprofit institutions, and public agencies understand their potential, set priorities, and fulfill their promise. While arts and culture are their main focus, they also serve clients in social service, health, environment, preservation, and other sectors. Allen focuses on understanding consumer demand for cultural experiences and helping institutions, foundations, and agencies see new opportunities, make informed decisions, and respond to changing conditions. Recently, he has worked with organizations such as the Doris Duke Charitable Trust and Dance USA to develop new evaluation and assessment tools. Allen also creates survey methodologies that communities can use to measure levels of cultural engagement over time. Customer segmentation is a major thrust of his work, with recent studies for the Philadelphia Orchestra, Steppenwolf, Welsh National Opera, and the major university presenters consortium.
But anyway, thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here. I love the, a lot of people don't like Zoom, but occasionally it has redeeming qualities. And one of the things is just meeting so many of you and seeing some wonderful familiar faces. I also want to recognize Jen Falk from ArtsBoston is with us. ArtsBoston, say hi, Jen. ArtsBoston is one of our partners on the Audience Outlook Monitor study. They've been an amazing partner. And through ArtsBoston, we've been deploying our survey to the lists of many institutions in and around Boston. And I apologize if you've been inundated with our surveys, but thank you those who filled it out. And I'm happy to share some today. So I prepared some stuff. I want to keep this as informal as possible to just kind of give you an overview. Some of you, I imagine, may be a little familiar with the study, and some maybe not. So feel free to stop me and just ask for any clarifications. But the study came to mind way back March last year, where things were locking down, and it was very apparent to me that we would need a mechanism for hearing from audiences about how they feel about going out during the COVID pandemic. And that was really the genesis of the study. It took a while to figure out that it needed to be what we call a longitudinal tracking study, which means that we're gathering data at regular time intervals, asking the same questions, and getting trend data so that we could see movement on key indicators of demand for arts programming and other stuff. So that's kind of how it was born. We went all the way through last year. We revised the protocol 4 times. I mean, the wonderful thing about a tracking study is you can add new questions and drop old questions, and the protocol itself can respond to emerging questions. And that's very much what we had last year. You know, we started before anyone was even using the word distancing, and the initial focus was all on venue safety, health safety measures in venues. Then it became clear venues weren't going to open anytime soon. And then we pivoted to digital and asking questions about demand for digital programming, and really went very deeply into that. And then back around October, when it became clear that vaccination was on the horizon, we pivoted again and started asking questions about vaccination. And now we've kind of gone fully there. So I'm going to give you just an overview of the second phase of the study, which has already started. The study is organized in cohorts. So we have wonderful sponsors in different cities who are hosting cohorts of organizations in their cities. We have a wonderful big cohort here in Detroit, where I live, Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, and so forth. You can see we're just putting together a wonderful cohort of orchestras from around the country so that they can share results with each other and with the entire orchestra field. A great cohort of about 30 big performing arts centers all around the United States, university presenters, and we have some international partners who are just giving us context of what it looks like in Australia, which is really in a totally different situation than we are here in the US. But we wanted to, the survey got very long, and we got complaints from patrons and donors about how long the survey was. We really cut the length for the second wave. We're keeping a number of indicators from the first cycle, so we have that 10 months of data that we're building on. A new focus on vaccination. We're continuing to ask questions around digital consumption of online programming, and really all of which is to give ammunition to arts and cultural organizations so that they know kind of where their audience sits in terms of readiness to return. Things are moving now very rapidly, as I'll show you in just a second, whereas all of last year they just sat in the same place, not a good place. So it's really quite a transformation. But our goal here is to support decision-making at the institutional level, and to support growingly now communications as venues are able to open and we are able to welcome people. What will the communications look like around that to build confidence amongst audiences and visitors? So our survey protocol looks like this. I won't read it. A critical new module around vaccination is asking people if they've been vaccinated or not, and then branching based on their answer to that question, and you get the general picture. So one of the questions we added this time right up front at the top of the survey was, are you ready to go out? Kind of like this week, assuming social distancing and other members are required. And it, you know, before we get into vaccination and everything else, we just wanted to ask people, are you ready to go out? And this is what we found. This is data from February 17th in Southeast Michigan, which is Detroit area. Our cohort of New Jersey theaters deployed the protocol February 17th, and our National Performing Arts Center cohort deployed the survey February 24th, just a week and a half ago. So Different results in New Jersey, 25% of people said I'm ready to go out this week. In the national cohort of performing arts centers, it was much higher. So this is, in Detroit, it was kind of in between. And this just shows you like the regional variations. I mean, you all know what happened in Texas yesterday in terms of just full opening, you know, which is a whole nother topic. Imagine you were in Texas as an arts group and your governor just allowed everything to reopen. Like, what are you going to do? And it just shows us like how we have to decide what we feel is safe and appropriate, independent of what our elected officials do. But this figure varies so much. For museums, it's much higher because generally museum going people are ready to go out. They've been going out, they feel comfortable. Indoor performing arts is a really different story. There's much more caution as regards that. So that might explain partly the difference here. This is the same question, but stratified by whether or not people say someone in their household is vulnerable to a serious health outcome from COVID. And you see the people on the right who have what they perceive to be a serious vulnerability are half as likely to be ready to go out. So this is the critical factor through all of our data, is just people who believe they or someone in their household is vulnerable to a serious health outcome are just way more cautious in all of our indicators about going out. And I think as we reopen, we're going to have to be very careful to not just celebrate all the people who are ready to come out, but also recognize that many people will not be ready to come out, and to make sure that we're outreaching to them, that we're live streaming to them, that we're doing what we can to stay relevant to them. We've seen an uptick in the percentages of people who say, I'm going to go out, you know, once things reopen, I'm going to go out more than I did before. Like, what? You know, we thought, you know, so what's behind that? We're asking questions, we're asking open-ended questions. And I have to say that we're just seeing a lot of evidence of real pent-up demand, just people just busting to go out, but also very concerned about doing that for health reasons. The vaccination questions, here we go. So this is our question because we had to design the survey for both double dose and single dose vaccines. We asked people if they're fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated. Here's the data. So by and large, we're looking around, this is like last week, right? 40% of our respondents are partially or fully vaccinated. It varies a little bit across the board, but when you cross-tab this by age, and you see, of course, older folks eligible for the vaccine, some younger folks getting the vaccine, eligibility, caregivers, people who work in education, but generally you're seeing, you know, the vaccination process is working. Older folks are getting vaccinated. In fact, and this just I found astonishing, as of last week, a majority of our audience members who are age 65 and over are already at least partially vaccinated. So arts audiences by and large have warmed up significantly. You know, back in November, before the election, there was all this skepticism about government meddling in the vaccine, but a lot of that skepticism has just dissipated, and people are anxious to get vaccinated. If people have been vaccinated, of course, we want to know how they feel about going out again. So we have this question, and this is what the data looks like. And the yellow bar at the bottom here are people who say they're ready to go out now. And it's between 16% and 27% for different cohorts. Again, we're seeing regional variations. Kind of, I'm avoiding getting into the politics of this, but red states, blue states, you know, are very different in some of these indicators. But most people here are even though they're vaccinated, are in wait and see mode. And I think this is very important for us to realize that vaccination on its own now is not a panacea. It is not the key that unlocks demand. There are more obstacles to overcome here before people are ready to go out. I think right now, well, we'll see what some of them are. This again looks at that vulnerability. People who say they're vulnerable to a serious health outcome are just a little less likely, even though they've been vaccinated, to be ready to go out. They're waiting for more conditions to be met, And at the end of the spectrum, there are people, we're seeing this in the data, who say they're not going to be ready to go out until there's zero risk to them, which of course is impossible and never going to happen, right? So I'm not really sure. Some of those people are telling us they'll be ready to go out when they have another antibody test proving that they have immunity. But right now, I don't know that we have such a test. Anyway, then we ask about sources of hesitancy. We just wanted to get a read of people, kind of what are you concerned about now that you're vaccinated, and all these things. And right now, kind of the biggest thing people are worried about is just that other people they know or in even their own household are not yet vaccinated, which makes perfect sense. While the vaccination program is rolling out, you're going to have people in the same household with different vaccination status, certainly friendship circles, and it's just going to take time for that those adjustments to be made. Otherwise, people are concerned that they still might be able to carry the virus, and that would be something they should worry about. Not too many people are worried that they've failed to become immune. It's a small group, but as you know, there are just a lot of questions about how long immunity lasts. Can I be a carrier? There are just a lot of open questions here, which are coming through in our data. Other questions, if people said, no, I'm not vaccinated, of course we want to know, do you plan to get vaccinated? And we've borrowed the questions from the Pew Research Center survey so that we have comparable data, and many, large percentage of people say, yes, I'm definitely getting vaccinated or probably getting vaccinated. On the negative side of that scale, we're looking at really 7% here in New Jersey and 16% in Detroit of people. These are people who are not yet vaccinated, saying they won't get vaccinated. So generally, these numbers are just way lower than the numbers for the general population, right? I think the latest figures for the general population were about 30%. Thereabouts of people saying they won't get vaccinated, and all the data we have in the arts audience suggests that the numbers are much lower, which is on one count a really happy idea to think that maybe it might be safer going to the theater than going to the grocery store, but that as we say that and a subway token gets you uptown. What really matters, of course, is success in the general population so that we reach herd immunity. So we do find some important differences, bearing in mind that the people who respond to our survey are the most loyal arts goers and visitors to museums. We do see disparities with regard to race and ethnicity in higher percentages saying they're less likely to get vaccinated. The story in the general population is amplified even farther, but the point is that even in the arts audience, we do have a diversity of perspectives on the vaccine and its appropriateness. We have diversity of feelings about getting vaccinated, and we have just a lot of listening to do. I'll get to that a little later. Obstacles to getting vaccinated among those who are not yet vaccinated, we did want to kind of explore that. I'm not going to share that with you now. And then we do allow people who say they do not plan to get vaccinated to just voice a reason or express a concern. We felt it was important to follow up, to value their input, and ask. And so we have this question. I won't show you results. Right now, it's just a very small percentage of people. It's not even stable enough to look at. Overall, do people think we're going to be successful in resuming, and having normal activities within a year? Very few people say they're not confident. Most people are in the middle. I'm a little confident. About a third of the people say I'm very confident we'll be back to normal. So we just created this as an indicator of kind of overall feelings about going out again. Then get out your crystal ball. We asked people, when do you think you'll be going out again? Based on everything you know about COVID. And we gave people the full spectrum of months to answer. In regards to performing arts, this is what the picture looks like. I love this. People are using all the answer items. Some people say I'm going out already, not many. The average typical person thinks they'll be going out in September in New Jersey, a little before that in Michigan. People in Michigan are a little more optimistic about going out a little earlier. We also have museums, the zoo, other sort of big cultural attractions in the Michigan cohort, and those people generally are more ready to go out a little sooner. But notably here, between 18 and 24% of folks say I ain't going out until after January. So again, you just see this diversity of feelings about going out. It's very different for museums. When do you think you'll be going again to museums? Well, 28% of our respondents in Detroit said I'm already going to museums. The average person thinks they'll be going out in May, and then a real spectrum thereafter. So it's quite different for museums and performing arts, as you would imagine. Coming in on the last couple of things, we're asking a number of questions about demand for digital. The way the survey works is that people are asked some questions in reference to the organization that sent them the survey, which we work in the name of that organization, so people are very clear. Now answer these questions in reference to a specific organization. And we ask, have you watched any digital programming ever, like since the crisis started? And this is a little maybe shocking or not what we expected, but not particularly high numbers. And bear in mind, these are the most loyal customers filling out our survey. In Detroit, 18% said they've watched digital programming more than once, and another 17% saying just once. It's a little lower amongst New Jersey theaters, and it's quite a bit lower amongst the performing arts centers. The big performing arts centers are generally not doing a lot of digital programming. This varies so much based on what institutions are actually doing. We have very high figures for certain organizations, very low figures for others. So it really varies a lot, but overall, not terribly high. Then we asked people in the last 2 weeks, did you pay for digital programming, or did you watch for free or not at all? And that's what this graph shows. The green bars are people who paid. It's a little higher in New Jersey, 31%. We did see a gradual increase into the late months last year of people who said they were paying for digital content. We also saw, at least even in the ArtsBoston cohort, a nice jump of people probably around the holidays who were taking in holiday content, digital content. So there's so much more to share with digital. I have one or two more. We're just starting now to explore, after you can go back to live programs, do you think digital is still going to play a role in your life? And pretty small percentages say it'll play a significant role. Very large percentages say it'll be some role, and then a third to a half say no role at all. So I think the jury's really out as to the role of digital programming post-COVID. I think we've approached it as a stopgap measure to keep patrons engaged, but I don't know that we've really approached it with a long-term view. There's a big discussion to have on that front. Here we are in early March. You know, we're coming down off that horrible surge, plateauing, maybe having another surge, hopefully not, God willing. But we know from our data there are people who are ready to go out right now. You know, that was that first graph I showed you, and it's anywhere from 25 to 40-ish%, you know, whether or not they're vaccinated. But, you know, demand is resuming. It actually never went away completely. There were always some people who were ready to go out and take the risk, but it's definitely growing now as people take the vaccine. And then, as you saw, a portion of the people who take the vaccine are ready to go out right away. But more people are waiting. But soon the conditions they're looking for will be met and they will be ready to go out. And so demand is going to resume gradually, and we're kind of on this runway. And the future of our whole sector really depends on us getting down this runway as soon as possible. There will be people who will still be not be ready to go out, even come September. We've seen that, and that figure could be as high as maybe 20%. There are people who just have a very, very high threshold to get over before they'll be ready to go out. They're going to watch what's happening with infection rates. They're going to watch what arts groups are doing. They're going to let their friends go out and see if they live to tell what happened. You know, they're just very, very cautious. In many cases, people with complicating conditions, you know. So we should not be expecting 100% of pre-COVID demand to return anytime soon. You know, I think if we're super lucky, we might get to 80%. Super, super lucky. But it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of strategic communications and a lot of building demand. So I just want to close by asking you all to think sort of how can you all be Elvis Presley's? This is one of my favorite photos. It was circulating the web a couple months ago, and you know, I just, everyone has a role to play in the public health initiative right now. I think the arts sector has a lot to contribute to the public health work happening now. I'm thrilled to see museums and theaters opening up as vaccination sites. I think with the new Johnson & Johnson single dose vaccine, that's going to be more plausible. There will be a diversification of sites. But more than that, I think artistic programming, you know, what can we do to be in dialogue with our communities about risk and truth, what is true and what is not true. I mean, my God, our country needs that more now than ever. So I just encourage you all to think what you can do to support the public health work, as you know, bringing our artistic assets to bear on this. Because if we don't get to herd immunity, our sector is just not coming back to anything close to what it was. And we have to contribute to the public effort here as best we possibly can. So thank you. I have, if you go to audienceoutlookmonitor.com website, you'll be able to access videos of past briefings, webinars, survey results by site. Here's the website. Do sign up for the email newsletter, which we send out approximately once a month, just to keep up with our results. But thank you so much, Claudia, for the invitation. It's great to see you all. And you know, we're here. We're only a phone call away. If you have questions, I'm always happy to help out however I can. So.
Yes, thank you so much, Alan. Really, I don't know how to, I'm still trying to digest that data. Some parts of it are uplifting. Some parts of it are scary.
Yeah.
I think all of you know how devastating this has been on the field. I'm going to share a link here to the Americans for the Arts website. This is a one-pager that you can download from the AFTA website. AFTA has done several studies. They've also compiled some other studies showing the full devastation on the field, and I'll reference some in my presentation. But it's pretty grim. I want to give you a quick overview of the organization. Again, it's the Association of Arts Administration Educators. The acronym we go by is AAAE. I've been the executive director since 2018. And we are a convener mainly. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're fully remote. My board is spread out all over the country. We have a few international board members. So great to see some board members here on this call. Larry Epstein, our vice president, is here. So very happy to have him here along with some of our members. I won't go through our mission. I know I was introduced with the mission, but I want to just kind of give you an overview of what we do and who we are. One of the main things that our organization does is to convene our members, and many of our members are faculty of arts management at the grad and undergrad level. We've got 400 individual members across 5 different membership categories. We also have many members who are practitioners of arts administration and arts management, not just faculty. And many, of course, bridge both worlds. And that's particularly evident in our student membership category. We have so many master's students who are studying at the graduate level while also working as a practitioner in the field. And we represent over 150 programs of arts management in higher ed. It works out to be about 100 graduate programs and about 50 undergraduate programs. So that's sort of how we're split. We have a very fine website, and shameless plug, it's artsadministration.org. And the website features a searchable database of arts administration programs at the grad and undergraduate level, and a searchable database of alumni success stories. So you can actually go to our website and see what arts administration graduates are currently doing with their degrees. My goal as executive director is to make arts administration a household name. I want students in high school to know that they can actually pursue a degree in arts administration and have a viable career. So many students find themselves going into the arts and sort of falling into arts administration as a career after they graduate, but it's a direct and fulfilling and lucrative career path, and that's sort of my goal. Some of the other more inward-facing things that we do is we convene our members in an annual academic conference. And the conference is one of the largest programs we offer. It's in May. Our upcoming conference is May 3rd through 28th. We will be completely online. We have several registration options, including a free option if you can't afford to make a payment. We have a registration by donation option, which is what I mean by that. We will be offering programming virtually every single day, May 3rd through May 28th. And we will open on May 3rd with a keynote from Mark Bamuthi Joseph, who is an artist, a performing artist, an educator, and a citizen philosopher. As some of you may already know this, but there is no formal standard accreditation body for arts administration programs. And so AAAE, when it was incorporated in the 70s, sought out to actually create arts administration standards. And so many of our members look to the AAAE standards to develop their curriculum. And we also offer a number of resources to all of our members, including a database of scholarly publications, theses, documents for detailing graduate and undergraduate standards for best practices. So that's kind of a snapshot of who we are. Just gonna flip the slide. So Alan gave us an overview of the overall sentiment right now on people going out and consuming the arts, and it can't happen soon enough for so many of us. It's pretty dire. Since the first US case was reported in January of 2020, cancellations have taken place at virtually every arts organization in the country, and artists and creative workers are among the most severely affected segment of the nation's workforce. 99% of producing and presenting organizations have canceled events. 63% unemployment for creative workers, 37% nonprofit arts job loss, 99% canceled shows and exhibits, and you can get a sense of the economic disaster if you follow the link to the Americans for the Arts website. The pandemic has really shed light on the inequities in our society, and the arts are no small example of that. Black, Indigenous, artists of color have higher rates of unemployment than white artists due to the pandemic, 69% versus 60%. So it's pretty grim. And I really love this quote by Zanetta Drew. She's the executive director of the Dallas Black Dance Theater. By the way, they've done some really interesting virtual programming. I don't know whether or not people are actually consuming it based on Alan's findings. But Zanetta says, artists, whether professional or not, become the unofficial, essential workers of the pandemic, vital to our nation's health and recovery, and an overwhelming validation of the importance of the arts. And that's so true. And we're consuming the arts now more than ever in our isolation. So let's move on. So it's really interesting, in sharp contrast to what's happening more broadly in the field. The pandemic's impact on programs of arts administration at the grad and undergraduate level have actually been positive. Many of our programs have experienced a sharp increase in inquiries, applications, and enrollment. I was talking to one of my board members yesterday. His program in the Midwest has seen a 25% increase in its freshman class, and they're getting an influx overall of undergraduate majors choosing arts-specific discipline majors and minors. And I think one of the reasons for this is students who are interested in the arts might seek out arts administration because the skills learned in an arts management program are really transferable to multiple careers. Also in 2009, with the economic collapse, higher ed saw this in general, right? People lose their job, or there's economic uncertainty, and people decide they want to go back to school to sort of augment their knowledge and their education. So overall, we've seen a growth in our programs. So impact on the organization. So again, we're a 501c3 nonprofit membership organization, and we're trying to function in this environment like everyone else. We were really afraid that our membership was going to take a severe hit, and it may. We'll see if this growth in our programs, increase in enrollment continues over the next several years. I think we have yet to scratch the surface of the economic impact of the pandemic and on higher education in general. When the pandemic hit last March, we quickly mobilized. We offered a few member town halls where we connected our members virtually to give people face-to-face time so people could talk about what they were going through, what was happening in their part of the country, and how they were reacting, how they were handling their students. We created a searchable database of expertise in key arts administration areas, which is really key. So if you were looking to hire someone to teach online because you suddenly had to mobilize to offer your program online, you could actually go to this database and search by number of keywords. We also, as many organizations did, compiled COVID-19 resources for artists and educators. And one of the big things, big challenges and hurdles that our organization faced was having to transition our academic conference to an online format. when the pandemic hit in March, we only had a few short months to mobilize and to figure out how we were going to offer our conference in May, which was scheduled to be in New York City at Baruch College. So of all places, so last spring, New York was sort of the hotbed of COVID activity. We also had budgeted to take in some significant revenue from the in-person New York conference. And with the cancellation of that conference, we were looking at a pretty significant deficit. So we mobilized very quickly. We went into crisis management mode as a board. We had several emergency board meetings. And at this point, conferences being moved to a virtual format that hadn't happened yet. We were one of the first organizations to have to do this. We were able to move very quickly. We decided to cancel and go online. We figured that our members wouldn't want to sit through multiple days of 8 hours plus programming. So we decided to move our programming over the course of 2 months. We had already accepted 80 proposals from our members, academics, scholars, practitioners, and we decided we were going to offer all of them over the course of May and June in 2020. We used Zoom meetings, much like this, so that our members could face each other and interface with the presenter. And we were actually able to generate some revenue from the conference and meet the hole that the cancellation of the in-person conference created.
Experiences, but how has COVID changed the pedagogical needs, the learning needs of students?
That's $1 million question, Alan. This is all happening in real time. We don't truly know what the new normal is going to look like, and we do not know what the world our students are going to graduate into. And that's actually the focus of our conference in May, reimagine, reconnect, and renew. Mm-hmm. So we'll be exploring that as a membership. But yeah, any of my members on the line right now want to jump in and give a quick update on what's going on in your classroom?
We're definitely seeing an increase in applications, and I think part of this is part of the normal. We've seen this following recessions that people often return to school when they need to retool their careers. In regard to the pedagogy, I mean, I think that one of the things that we have become acutely aware of is that in order for organizations to be sustainable, we really need to build arts managers' skills in terms of analyzing and reacting to crisis. So crisis management is an area where we've really emphasized. We've added a couple of special topics courses on that. But one of the things, the overall outlook, we're very interested to see what the resiliency of people's careers are, depending on what their background are. We're working on a longitudinal study with ArtsBoston. We're tracking individual arts administrators over the next few years to see what their outcomes are, and looking at it in relationship to things like academic training. So don't have a lot of answers right now, but hope to down the line.
I have a question for Alan. So I'm probably one of the rare one in the audience who has a public health degree and an art degree. So I am an NPH and MFA. So when you're describing this junction of art and public health and how we have to consider helping it, right? Otherwise, we'll just be gone, wiped out. And I think I actually thinking, other than the propaganda department, which you show a very lively picture of the Elvis, that's well done. And the other intersection between public health and art is in the hand of the community artist. Because public health, as you know, is, as I know, is the biggest part of it is health education. But I guess all the artists are challenged to work on a fine line, like how do we as artists create the myth we need, the ambiguity, but the beauty and the playfulness of our art, and that fit into an effort of public health.
Yeah, thank you for that. The governor of California has allocated 15 million to the California Arts Council to support artists working in community contexts to do public health work. That program is not yet rolled out, but it's based on a pilot that happened in San Francisco. So there's an interesting exemplar there, but I think we need a framework for this, and part of the solution is artists. Part of the solution is facilities. Part of the solution is using our communications. I mean, I think the work of BIPOC-led organizations must be prioritized in this work. And then I think we also need a framework that would allow every nonprofit to play some role, either through artistic programming that is of relevance, or even if it's just playing music for people who are standing in line to get vaccinated. You know, I don't think it's rocket science, honestly. We have are artistic we have relationships with artists in terms of institutions. We have creative processes. We can commission work. You know, I think we need all of those assets, but my concern is it's too late. I mean, everyone who wants a vaccine is going to get it in the next 4 months or so. And what's going to happen is we'll come out and it'll be harder and harder to convince people to get, and this can't just be about vaccine. You know, we'll fail miserably if this is a bunch of white people telling Black folks to go get vaccinated. I mean, we all know that won't work. But, you know, what would work is dialogue and listening and valuing people with different viewpoints on this. And we know how to do that in the arts. Like, art is a means of having difficult conversations. So I think that's one of the reasons I see the arts as playing an essential role. I mean, there's a play about the Tuskegee experiment. It's called Miss Evers' Boys. Why is that not being produced right now? And other work like that.
Alan, you mentioned that the second report is going to be ready now in March 25th. Where is that going to be available?
Well, you know, let's work through Jen at ArtsBoston. After ArtsBoston, I don't think is deploying, Jen, if I'm correct, until April.
We're going to start doing it. The second phase starts in April and we'll go through. There'll be 5 deployments between April and November.
Right, but we'll have other, and I mean, Leanne, I just want to bring this around and make a connection between us, because, you know, one of the ways that cultural policy failed our country is that there was no emergency preparedness plan. You know, there was no agreed upon way, for example, to get research done that the sector needed.
Right.
You know, and oh, how I wish we had we could activate students in the research work so that we could have hundreds of young researchers doing this work and contributing to the field's knowledge. And I just want to say, oh, how I wish one of the things we come out of this is an understanding of how we can work across education and research to actually address our country's needs.
Well, it's 5 o'clock. We made it. We did it. I will turn to my adult drink because there are great comments in the chat box. I hope you had a chance to read the great resources. I think this is fantastic. I think this partnership, and as I always say, alliance that we form here, it's important. Let's continue the conversation. We're here to really provoke each other with questions that are very difficult to answer, especially now. We don't have the answers. We are gathering tools so we can make our own toolkit. to continue to act on behalf of our communities, our audience, and now the entire population, because we found out that our community now expanded, and we need to figure out how we're going to continue to include everyone. Next week, we're going to talk about fundraising. We're going to bring 3 guests. We're going to talk about new ways to raise money. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Leanne. This was fantastic. I'll drink to health. I'll drink to vaccine. I'll
Here.
drink to all of us. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And have a fantastic and healthy rest of the week and a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia.